Hey everybody, we're back to do something we haven't done in a long time. I don't even know if this is the first one that gets released.
Probably not.
So you've probably seen at least one Empire business. Obviously, we're doing the season thing now, so there's a follow-on to those or that one. This can be a club update. We're going to be taking a look at how our club has performed over the past year plus. We've made a couple of big changes to the club in that amount of time, and want to see just if we can figure out how it's affected us from a revenue standpoint. Kind of important. I spent like a couple of hours this morning figuring out some of the kind of totaling some stuff and figuring out percentages of retention and stuff like that. And we have some reports on our dashboard and just in our Recurly system, which is our subscription platform, that we're going to walk through, see if we can figure this out together. I have a small outline that we can go through, take you through the show and tell. Here we go. So this is our Recurly dashboard. That shows us how pretty much all of our subscription stuff is performing. Right now you can see our active subscribers is just over 4,200. So that's pretty good. It's not the highest it's ever been. I'll talk about that here in a second, but it's a pretty solid number for us.
I also want to point out that, like, if you remember the Save Bald Move videos, like, we did analysis of what the club would look like at 25% retention, 50% retention, 75, 100. We're right at 100%. Like, 18 months after that, we're right at like 100% retention.
And we actually hit that at the almost exactly the 1 year mark. If we want to jump on, that change, we can. But in December 2017, we had almost exactly 4,200 members.
Right. And
at the new price.
And we're also routinely covering our burn rate just through the club at this point, which that was one of our goals. But we finally achieved it. So, like, I know, like, on this particular screen, it might look scary because there's a lot of red.
Yeah, and especially like these last few months. So,
but we have explanations for all that.
Yeah, here you can see, we lost 30 subscribers that month. We lost 241 subscribers that month. 82 this month so far. Those are things that we kind of expect to happen, and I'll talk about why here in a second, as it relates to like club sales and stuff like that. But I just kind of wanted to go through the major sort of stats here first. Active subs 4,234. That's pretty good. You come down here for monthly recurring revenue, which is $18,763. We spend something like 12,000 ish a month, 12 to 13. So this is definitely covering, and we've seen, over the past year, which we probably already talked about in the Empire, the what is it?
State of the Union, State of the Empire.
State of the Empire. We've probably already talked about this, but our bank account is substantial at this point to where we're looking at doing projects. So you can see the difference between what we spend and what we make each month. And then the average revenue per customer, which I think is also an important metric, is $18.97. So for every new member we bring in, make about $19 lifetime off of them. So that's pretty good. Or actually, no, the subscriber lifetime value is $28. We make about $18 annually, I think, per member. So it's like above.
But I mean, the thing is that's a constantly moving target, and it depends
on
and
it calculates like monthly people who go 2 months and then cancel, or yearly people who sign up with a club for a club sale for $36, right? There's a lot of stuff that goes into that, and honestly, it's kind of pretty opaque. I don't have a lot of view into how that works. They do have documents that kind of explain it, but honestly, I'm not a financial expert, so I don't really know.
I just want to point out that, like, if we go back and do a little tour of history to show how far we've come, because Jim and I don't often do this, but like in the month of August, our total club sales, including commission podcasts, which we don't even do anymore, was $2,946 in 2015. August 2016. Our total club sales, including shops, including commission podcasts, was $5,702. In 2017, August, I
I think that one's artificially inflated because I think that was the Jon Snow year, the shirt year, 2016.
No, not in all. Well, maybe, but anyway, like last year, our total club sales were $11,250, not including commission podcasts. So like, this is some real, essentially doubling of the club every single year, like clockwork, and that's extremely gratifying. And also, like, I don't know if it's going to continue. I honestly don't. I don't know if it's going to continue to do that, but if so, it's going to mean lots of really interesting, cool things about Bald Move. Finally being able to have the confidence to get more employees. Finally being able to get like to a studio to where you can do stuff, that we can invest like money into projects and things that we've been kind of too timid to do before. And the fact that, like, you know, this last year or so, as we showed in the financial update, I mean, our runway is infinite at this point.
Yeah, we're making more money than we are spending.
Yeah. So, and that's this literally is these last 12 months have been the only time we could ever say that. Like, every single projection we did past 12 months showed Bald Move running out of money.
And I think you can see why. Like, look at this graph. This is important. Subscribers is, you know, there are months where we dip, and I'll talk about those, but like, this is the biggest month we've ever had in May. 4,587 subscribers. 1 year before that, in May, was 1,935. So that's more than doubling the club in a year.
And, you know, but I mean, but we also have to remember that we had an existing club that had 4,000-ish members.
All of these numbers are fuzzy. Like, it's so impossible to tell because we've changed things so frequently. Things have been changed on us so frequently.
Right.
These are just the kind of as close as I can get to apples kind of thing.
And I also got to give, like, you know, when we're talking to the club, I got to give dap to my partner here, because we had a pretty fierce philosophical battle about increasing the club price, you know, and if you've been around for a couple of years, you remember there's a lot of hue and cry about going from the $1 a month to essentially the $5 a month. But I'm just looking at these numbers and I'm thinking, like, imagine if we were still struggling to make $6,000 in the club. Like, I mean, that absolutely probably that's saved Bald Move. Like, we would not have been able to,
along with the $40-something thousand injection from all of our
but those two things,
listeners.
those two things, you know, single-handedly made not only to save Bald Move, but also have given us the autonomy that we crave. Like, we really are not beholden to many third parties at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
So that feels pretty good. All good news.
Yeah, I was going to kind of analyze that. Like, okay, so like I said, in December 2016, that's when we made the change over to the new club price, right? It was at the beginning of that year. So December 2016, we had about 4,200 members in the old club on the old price of $1 a month, $12 a year. So de facto $1 a month. December 2017, we had 4,200 subscribers, roughly. And all these numbers are rough, which is $21,000 a month at the new $5 rate. Now, I know the $5 rate is fuzzy because not everybody's paying $5 a month.
And it wasn't
In
exactly
fact, most people probably aren't.
Sure.
But yeah, and it wasn't a 4-to-1 increase on the price exactly because we had the name your own price thing earlier. But yeah, I mean, $21,000-ish a month is, you know, that's a 5 times increase on what we would probably be making, give or take.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, even if our club doubled or tripled, we would only be barely breaking even at a tripling of the club at $1.
Right.
So I really don't think we would be very sustainable if we were still at $1.
And it would also, we'd perpetually be like just barely making it. So like, your analysis of what the market would bear and what we should, you know, like everything you said was right, everything I said was wrong, and I want to publicly acknowledge that.
But I understand your philosophical thing. The other thing to look at it, like, when we increase the club price, like, our demographic is a lot like us, right? We're middle-aged guys who probably most likely and gals, yeah, we are middle-aged people who probably have more or less steady income streams, right? Like the people we were worried about driving off, and I know we drove off some of them the $5 a month, but those people were the minority within our demographics, certainly.
Right.
And I feel like we would have been putting Bald Move at risk to try and still cater to them.
Right.
At the $1 a month. So I think we I think $5 is the right price. I still do.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the data has borne that out.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the shrinkage, because there are some months here, which I just like the term shrinkage.
Yeah.
It's
cold. It's cold in here. Those bars are
good.
blue for a reason.
Well, they always use that term in retail for
right.
loss,
for
theft.
For theft.
Yeah, shrinkage. We had some shrinkage in 2018. It's actually the first year we've seen any backsliding on the club whatsoever.
Yeah.
Aside from when we switched platforms.
Uh-huh.
So you can see December here, 4163, and then in January, February, and March we saw that reduce, and we got down to about 4,000 before bumping it back up on Westworld. So we lost about 155 subs there. When we had that backslide, we had 3 shows on the air. Well, one show really, Walking Dead, was on the air,
Right.
and that show was fucking backsliding. That was just an awful show that lost a ton of viewers over the season to season.
I mean, 2018 has been a soft year for Bald Move.
Although a much bigger year than the previous year, right? Like growth has been a little bit soft, I think. Even though we doubled the club, but like you said, that doesn't count the old people who were still
Right.
on the yearly plan.
Well, what I'm saying by soft, I mean we hardly did anything for the first 2 months. Like we had a solid, I felt really good about Last Christmas and our promotion. Last year was terrific. Like we had The Leftovers and Better Call Saul and Fargo, and they were all on the top of the game, and Mr. Robot is the top of the game, and Game of Thrones was maybe not at the top of the game, but it's still Game of Thrones, and it's bringing in 1 million unique listeners, and we're getting the top of the podcast. This year, Walking Dead is Walking Dead. Westworld came back, but was largely seen as a disappointment, and its audience growth was nil.
Yeah.
And we've got Better Call Saul's back, and that's injecting some excitement. Has been some successes, like our Game of Thrones rewatch has been successful, but like this year is probably just in terms of like the entertainment that we are covering. We're not going to have Stranger Things. We're not going to have Game of Thrones. We're not going to be doing Walking Dead anymore. We're not going to have Leftovers anymore. We're not. Like we didn't get Fargo. We're not going to get a Mr. Robot. Like that's a lot of important shows to us that are not on the radar.
Yeah, and I think that's reflected in memberships. Like here, we usually have Better Call Saul or something in there to prop up February numbers,
Right.
March numbers. Didn't have that this year.
We just had we had Walking Dead, which was steadily declining the whole time.
Yeah, so our club memberships reflected it. Now we're also currently experiencing a backslide here on memberships, but this is because Game of Thrones did not hit.
Right.
So this massive bump that you see from like April to May, like 300 memberships or whatever.
That was our Westworld sale.
Right. That was all on the back of the Westworld sale.
And thank God we did early rather than like late, because the worm had kind of turned somewhere around there.
And you can see here that Game of Thrones, when we did the Game of Thrones sale, it just made a huge increase, 900 memberships, right? From June to July.
Right.
July was the month of the game.
July to
August was the same.
Right.
They were both kind of like Game of Thrones and the sale.
Yeah.
Huge growth. Now, we didn't see that this year because no Game of Thrones, but we didn't see a huge backslide, actually. I was looking at the numbers.
Can we look at the retention number, actually?
Yeah. Here, let me pull that up while I'm talking about it. Subscriber retention. So, God, this fucking view is terrible. Let me zoom out a little. Okay, I wonder if you can... I assume you can still read that. So yeah, we lost about 353 subs so far since May, but 258 of those are Game of Thrones people who canceled their memberships. Now we had 708 new subscribers from the Game of Thrones sale,
right? Which
to me says 68%, which is our retention rate here after 1 year on the Game of Thrones sale. 68% right there. 68% of those people renewed after a year, even with no Game of Thrones on the air.
Yeah. And then what's incredible about that is, so we gave a 25% discount to encourage the club sale. When they renew, it renews at full price. So we've lost slightly more than 25% of that audience, but they renewed at full price. And that's the thing when we...
Yeah.
that's a light bulb moment for Jim and I is that when we were planning out our financial year, we're like, shit, we're not going to have Game of Thrones. We might have this Westworld thing, but we forgot that the majority of those people are not going to cancel their subscriptions.
Yeah.
The vast majority aren't. They're going to renew at full price. So we essentially got another Game of Thrones sale bonanza in the middle of a slow period. And next year in the spring, even if there's nothing, well, it turns out it's going to be Game of Thrones next year, so it's probably going to be fucking nuts.
Double, yeah.
But we might have a double wave next year, and like those are some things we can start. We've seen enough data that we can start planning and seeing those things. But
Right, you're talking about the Westworld sale,
right,
and the Game of Thrones sale, kind of locking in a certain number of retention of subscriptions year over year, even though the shows aren't hitting at the same time.
now there's a couple. And I think that the future is actually even rosier than that, because right now we don't have the capability. Like if you are a member that has 3 months to go in their membership and there's a sale, the natural thing to do would be to stock up. Like, well, shit, I've got 3 months to go. I'm gonna go buy another year and lock in this discount. You can't do that with our existing software. It essentially creates another membership that overlaps the current one. We're going to pay to have that fixed, hopefully by the end of this year. And because I think that's just going to really, because like what club member, if you're listening to it and you can lock in savings, and you're going to be a club member, then why wouldn't you save 25%?
Yeah.
So like I think we're going to have some monster sales when the existing club members can take advantage of the sale and be rewarded for their loyalty. Because I almost like if you're only rewarded if you're a brand new club member or a lapsed club member. And
I mean that's the incentive we're providing,
and
right?
that's the opposite of like the kind of loyalty based marketing that the rest of the world is moving to, where like you keep that core nucleus and you take care of them. So moving that, I think it's going to be even better. But it's also like this is a fascinating chart to me because I know that like like if you got a shopping card or like a loyalty card, any company would be thrilled to have these kind of retention numbers. But I don't know if these are good for like this kind of loyalty thing.
I've got those numbers.
Do you? Yeah. All right. Awesome.
Or at least as close as I can get with average churn rate, I guess. So if you look at
what industry are we talking? Well, go ahead.
We're talking about specifically Recurly's data analysis of 2 categories.
Okay.
Okay, good. You can see all this. So this is the media and entertainment. All of the media and entertainment companies that host their subscription, that use the Recurly subscription platform, this is their average data for churn rates, essentially.
Okay.
I can tell you by our dashboard, let me come over here, that we are somewhere between, here's our churn rate, somewhere between 3 and 7 is a high watermark for us on this because the Game of Thrones club sale.
People got like, oh, Game of Thrones not back, well, fuck this.
Right.
Or
and it's just like, well, I'm a year out on my membership. I haven't really paid attention. I don't care. I'm going to cancel it. But yeah, our average is somewhere between like 3 and 5. This month is an anomaly, I think.
Yeah, right.
But if you look at those numbers, voluntary churn versus involuntary churn, I don't know what those mean, honestly, but business to consumer stuff, 3.88 is about average.
So
for
we're
voluntary churn.
Slightly below or slightly above that for average? Okay.
Yeah, depending on the month. So we're like right on with most of the media and entertainment.
Okay.
Now, if you come down here and you look at, this is the amount that you charge for a membership, essentially, between $10 and $25. And I'm looking at I'm using this number down here, which is average revenue per customer, because I think that's what they're using. Let me check. Yeah, churn rates by average revenue per customer. And ours is like 18 something. So that puts us here at 5.65. So we're actually under that number. So we're doing pretty good as far as churn goes. We are below
you'd have to, for this anomalous month, you'd have to essentially take that, like, because like you're essentially experiencing a full year worth of churn in that 1 month. You'd have to take that, divide it by 12, and then apply it to all the other months to get it normalized. But
it's a number that I don't know how to do.
Yeah, if we had a board to report to, we'd have to do
that
that shit. And guess what? We don't. It's just you people, and I think you see like. And that's the thing, like I never know like what people are going to freak out about, but like, and I know that like there's a lot of red in that first screen, but if you are hearing what we're saying, our club in revenue terms has doubled every year for like the last 4 years, and we're entirely self-sufficient by club standards. So unless we just piss off a massive amount of our fan base, you guys, then we
Right.
and then we keep working the way we've always been working, then we should be good to go. So
Here's the other really interesting thing about using Recurly, because that was also a big concern of ours. Like, how much of our revenue are we going to lose just paying for our subscription platform? I think it's actually the exact opposite. I think we're making money by having switched to this. So I did an analysis here of the recovered revenue, and they have several methods for recovering revenue. Let's see if I can find what those are.
well, especially our old system was actively just fucking up subscriptions and renewals and
So here's what they do. To recover revenue, they do a few things. Expiration date changes. A customer's card on file passes its expiry date. Recurly automatically moves the date forward and retries the transaction. So they don't even like have to contact the customer to say, hey, update your thing.
right
They just go ahead and move it forward, the standard credit card,
several years.
yeah, couple years or whatever it is, and try it again. And apparently that recovers a lot of revenue. That's something we never would try on our own.
Right.
This account updater, they check with the credit card companies and see if there's been like an update to the card information before they run it. So we wouldn't be able to do that. And then recycling retries, they say they have a sophisticated retry logic to maximize the likelihood a failed transaction becomes successful. I don't know what that means, but it's probably something we wouldn't do.
They wait until the following Friday, assuming it's payday, and then try to
Right,
try
probably.
to process again.
Yeah, so I did some calculations, and over, you can see here, it lists how much revenue we've recovered every single month. Our recovered revenue in the lifetime that we've been using Recurly is $10,991.
Right.
You think we paid less or more to Recurly than that
Less.
over 18 months? Yeah, about $7,500.
Right.
That's crazy.
And
so they've
again,
actually
and
made us
this-
$2,500.
And I'm telling you, we like 25% of renewals on the old system, if not more,
Yeah.
failed.
Yeah,
So,
this
like,
is a
above
conservative
and beyond
number.
just not having a complete piece of shit shopping cart. That's like, and I've also seen, because I did some search, like looking through our support calls. It seems
Yeah.
like our per unit support calls have fallen too.
Hmm.
Like there's not nearly as much shit on fire. I mean, last month was a bad example because we had a whole bunch of people not paying attention to their fucking email. And I can talk about them because they're not watching this because they're not club members anymore. Not paying attention to their emails. They're getting saying, hey, you're about to renew. You know, if you want to cancel it, and they just let it renew and then email us and say charge it back or and do all that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
there's a rash of that. But even accounting for all that, like switching to Recurly and this new streamlined back-end system has done nothing but good things for across the Bald Move.
Right. There was a lot of like friction and a lot of headaches, I think, for both us and some of our users in December of 2016 when we
Sure.
decided to make the two changes, right? The
Yeah,
one
yeah, yeah.
change on the subscription platform, the other change on the pricing. And I would say after analyzing both of those that they were both successful. I think they were both good calls in retrospect.
And that's not to say that it's perfect. I know there are people that like, you know, get
Yeah.
a double charge or weird stuff like that. But I'm just saying, and you know, and if you're the one like, hey, it's not, I know it's not perfect, but I'm just telling you empirically, if you look at the data and you look at the amount of support calls, it's miles better than it used to be. And the fact that this thing is essentially paying for itself through recovered revenue is, I mean, look how much it recovered
Yeah.
last month. It was like
$2,780. Yeah, it's
Holy
crazy.
moly.
Crazy.
Holy moly.
Yeah, and all of that is, you know, that Game of Thrones stuff, the sale, you know, cards expire over that year. Like that's a huge concern, something we never would have been able to go back and say, hey, can we figure out a way to,
Right.
you know, update their information?
Right.
No, we couldn't have done that. So Recurly's been awesome for us. The last thing that I really want to talk about is what effect did the club sale have on new signups? Because, you know, it's one thing to go, okay, we had 300,000 people listening to the podcast this year. Next year we had 1 million listening, and we saw a big bump, big
Right.
surprise.
No shit. We had 3 times the engagement.
Right, but we also did the club sale during that period, which was a new thing, and we wanted to try and tease out how much of a bump just the sale aspect of it gave us. So I've done some really fucking fuzzy numbers here. It's hard because, first of all, Doesn't hit during the same time of the year, so not all the same shows are on.
Not the same length of season.
7 episodes versus 10 episodes the previous year. There are a lot of factors in here. We got a new stats update dropped on us, so like I don't know how to account for all that stuff.
This doesn't apply for the Game of Thrones because the stat change happened after Game of Thrones went off the air.
Right.
Which I think we talked about that. We'll have talked about the stats change elsewhere, but if this is the first one you're watching, there was a push to standardize podcast statistic reporting because everyone, like if you were on Blueberry or Podbean or the Libsyn or Midroll or whatever, Blog Talk Radio, they all had a slightly different way to report their stats because there is, up until recently with the iTunes, like using client side data, there was no real way. Like you just, a number of bits went out and a number of people made those requests and they did some math and tried to extrapolate how many downloads that actually was.
Right.
And
now they use something called the 24-hour IAB window, which is just like, it's essentially they give you one download per day per file.
Right. So there's it's complicated, but the way the Libsyn used to do it is they came up with an average podcast size based on the average podcast length, and then they did the math applied to that. So longer, like Bald Move type, hour and a half, 2 hour, 2.5 hour podcast would by a factor of 2 sometimes over report how many downloads there were.
Right.
So like when we are looking at our new stats, apples to apples, they're no longer apples to apples because it looks like on these podcasts, especially ones with lots of feedback that go, lots of analysis, our traffic is half of what it was. That doesn't mean half the people have stopped listening. It just means they have changed the way that they're calculating that download to make it, to let advertisers essentially have confidence that these numbers are going to be the same across all platforms. And the majority of the real serious podcast outlets have already adopted these statistics.
Right.
So that's the short. Well, we do a deeper dive in one of the other Empire Business podcasts, but continue.
And I guess I want to kind of describe the methodology for figuring out what effect the club sale had versus just natural organic growth. So what I did here is I took the revenue that we made from the club in Game of Thrones season 6 and the revenue that we made from the club in Game of Thrones season 7, and I compared those and got like a percentage growth.
Okay.
And then I took the number of downloads in season 6, compared them to the number of downloads in season 7, got an average or got a percentage growth for that.
Did you account for the different lengths of episode or the different number of episodes in any way?
I did, yeah. So I essentially used the first 7 episodes of each season.
Okay, all right.
Because,
it's the best you can do.
It's the best I could do.
Because if you did the last 7, it would be probably over favorable because these shows continue to grow throughout the season. So like the first 7 versus the first 7 seems like it's the best way to go.
Yeah, I mean the first episode in a season gets typically half of the episodes of the final episode in the season.
Right.
So I took the first 7 of each season. Now, without I don't think I need to do any adjustment of stats on this because I'm using the same legacy stats package for both of those.
Right.
Which
we couldn't do this for Westworld yet because Westworld would be a great one to do it on, but we have new stats package for Westworld season 2, old stats for season 1, and they have yet to apply a key to the old stats, so it would literally be comparing apples to oranges.
Yeah. In 2016, during Game of Thrones, we made $24,500. In 2017 Game of Thrones, we made $59,024. Downloads were actually a much smaller percentage in 2016 of the 2017 numbers. So we did 1.2 million downloads in 2016 for Game of Thrones, 6 million downloads in 2017 for Game of Thrones, which puts that 2016 number at 20% of the 2017 number. Yeah, it looks like the number actually, the growth of attributed to the club sale is negative,
Yeah.
which I think that's just like the engagement rate overall went down, even though we had a lot more people listening. The engagement didn't scale with that.
Well, it's also we found that anytime we have a massive, we should probably do some analysis on this. But we found that whenever we have a massive new influx of customers, of listeners, they don't immediately become club members.
Right.
People become club members after they spend a year or two with us, and what we see is there's always like an attendant bump the next year when that first flush of people, because we're going to convert. These are Game of Thrones fans hungry for podcasts, but that by the next year, if they're still around, they're more Jim and Aaron fans, and that it takes a year to develop the relationship before people are willing to open up their wallets and support us, which makes perfect sense.
And we found, over the course of honing our advertising skills, the repetition matters. And people don't sign up the first time they hear about the club.
Yes.
They sign up the 100th time they hear about the club, If you hit people over the head with it long enough, they eventually go, oh, yeah, no, I like this enough to subscribe. Let me do that.
And I wish we could do better analysis on Westworld, because the other thing we did with Westworld, the wrinkle that we added, is we had something that you could get directly by purchasing a club membership, which is access to the instant talk. Essentially our club pitch for most of the year is like, if you like our stuff, you get more of our stuff, but it's not the same stuff. It's stuff like lunch, and it's stuff like Quip, and it's stuff like video game playthroughs and all that kind of stuff. The instant talk was the first time we actually said, here is more of the stuff that you actually are interested in right now.
Right.
And I'm really curious to see how that works with Game of Thrones, because
I think it worked really well with Westworld.
First of all, like the amount of feedback, like we are not going to be able to get to everyone's comment. There's just no fucking way. There's no fucking way. Like, we barely had time to get to everybody in Westworld, and Game of Thrones is easily going to be 10 times the traffic of that. If it comes back at 2016 levels. So, or I don't know, I'm sorry, 2017 levels. So,
and I'll also say these, when I say I took the first 7 episodes, I mean the first 7 full episodes, because we do instant takes, we do spoilers.
Right.
Those are just like full, here's our recap and analysis episodes.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know, our numbers.
Well, the other thing is you took the revenue of the entire season versus the revenue for 7 episodes. So, I mean, I kind of like want to just lop a third off of the revenue of 2000. So then you'd actually see.
Well, I didn't. I took the revenue for the months that it was on the air, and only the downloads from the months that it was on the air. So.
But how did you, if it spanned 3 months, how?
I took all the revenue from those 3 months and I put
That's
it
what
together.
I'm saying. But to be fair to 2017, we'd have to like take a third of that revenue off, because we only had 7 weeks instead of 10 weeks to earn it. So we only have 2 weeks versus, or 2 months versus 3 months.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
So you do that, then I think we're back to. But again, this is the kind of like live analysis that we're doing. I mean, this is kind of how we try to figure things out.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about how we think things work,
right?
And then we try and come up with a plan to attack that. Yeah.
And then we try to come up with data that either supports or denies. And then we also try to make predictions to see if they track year over year.
Yeah. Which you've heard all about those by now.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing, is now that we've been stable on a club platform, that we are actually getting like, useful apples to apples information.
Right.
Because we changed the price and we changed the platform, and now it's nice to get all this stuff.
Yeah, the one thing I'm really glad we did when we started up these club sales is put them all into separate plans. Because if we had not done that, there would be no way to get this data back out.
Right.
We just have a big boost on the yearly during those months, and be like, well, how much of that was natural? How much of that was specifically the sale? And I think when you look at those numbers, let me go back to that. Nope, that's not it. Let's see. Maybe it'll show me on plans. Yeah, so you can see, all right, the yellow here is the Game of Thrones sale. We got up to 708 people, new people, who signed up for that yearly Game of Thrones plan. So you have to say that some percentage of those people would not have signed up at the standard rate.
Certainly.
Now, I don't know if it's higher than that 68% retention. Probably not, but then you look at the Westworld sale, and we had 407 people at the height of that sign up.
Because like, the other thing is like now we're seeing this, we can use this strategically because like before we've just like, oh, it's our biggest audience, let's run a sale. And we probably still will do a little bit of that, but like what'll be interesting is like if we've got like some months where, because right now we've got a big surge in spring for Westworld, we got a big surge in stuff for the summer for previous Game of Thrones. It would be interesting to run like next year, run like a fall sale. And then you could kind of like just bounce back between spring, summer, and fall and try to keep like, because you're trying to normalize your revenue.
Right.
We talked about how our business is such a seasonal one. This club has been one way that where like even though our work is seasonal, the way we get paid is much less seasonal than it used to be.
Yeah. I mean, the club has smoothed most of that stuff out.
Right.
Which is awesome in my mind. I also want to take like, I want to show what our traffic versus our club memberships look like.
Yeah, right.
Because you might look at, okay, let me turn the show and tell back on. So you might look at this on the dashboard here and say, oh my God, look at the downturn here, right? Like that's a huge problem. The subscribers are up and down. But if you look at our statistics, look at that.
Yeah.
That's our up and down. That's our natural ebb and flow here, with Game of Thrones being obviously a massive monster. But if you look at this trend line here, you can see these orange lines. They constantly go up, and they go up faster and faster, honestly, the longer we do this. You can kind of see those same trends here if you look at that. Even though the peaks aren't quite as high, the base is rising.
Yeah, well,
which is what gets us excited.
The peaks go up, but the valleys are way smoothed down. Like just because Game of Thrones is off the air, well, people sign up for a year, and that gives us a year to earn their loyalty for the next year, and we've been able to keep 60% of them.
Right, and with our traffic patterns, you expect to see that ebb and flow reflected in the memberships as well.
Right. Now, like there is some private, like a little bit of concern about like, okay, what if Game of Thrones is the last big tentpole television show that we have? What if the user base for television continues to fragment and we just don't have like these things where everybody comes together and watches a one? Now, I'm somewhat skeptical because that kind of Chicken Little thing has gone back to the early days of Game of Thrones. Oh shit, or early days of Bald Move. See how I conflated the two, thereby proving the point. Like, oh God, what happens when Breaking Bad goes off the air? Because it's the 800-pound gorilla. Oh God, what happens when we lose Mad Men? Oh God, what happened? And I could go either way, I guess. I am skeptical that there will not be, after Game of Thrones, some other large show, like for example the prequels to Game of Thrones, or something else that we don't know, like maybe Expanse blows up, because that seems like a show that might be primed to blow. Now that it's got some different management under it. There's who knows, but if not, the nice thing about the club is as long as we do content that pleases our club members, like we don't need as many big shows because big shows help us grow. Right now, like we're paying our bills and all that stuff, and I still want Bald Move to grow and whatnot, but it takes a lot of the pressure off. Like what we really need to do is convert existing fans to club fans and keep the club fans. Yeah. But I suspect that there will be another tentpole television show. We just don't know what it is yet. Because like when Breaking Bad was going off the air, Game of Thrones wasn't what Game of Thrones is now, and we'd had the same question. So we just don't know. Like what's the next Walking Dead or something like that. Yeah, we'll have to see. But that's about all I got for the club update. Is there anything else you want to talk about? The other thing, let's talk about whether first thing, the fact that we're restructuring the club to seasonal style updates. Okay. Like right now we're in the Empire business season, so we're going to do 6 to 8 of these segments across various different things, and we're going to do that, and then we're going to move on to something else. We just got out of the Quip season. I am somewhat concerned that seasonality will work against us, that when like if like someone's renewing their year and they go and like, well, I really like the Quips, but Jesus, it's been 6 months so I've heard one, I'll wait. Once they decline, then we have to earn them all over again. On the other hand, the positive side is we should have better features, more interesting features, because right now we've had the same club content, the same offering. Instant Talk is the first thing we've innovated in well over a year. We're going to do more of that, so like maybe we will find something that's even more successful, or it'll be the one thing that like motivates someone to. But do you have any, like, I mean, I guess part of the Empire business is like stating definitively why we're doing the things we're doing. Like,
I mean, honestly, a lot of it is to keep myself engaged in the club features and keep them as fun as possible for everyone, myself included. Because, I mean, every time we sit down and do a quip, we're like, has this run its course?
right.
Are we
Is the
gonna
well going to go dry?
Yeah, I mean, we have to click 100 times to get a name we haven't seen in our random name generator.
Right.
When does that train end? And I think, you know, doing something once every month or every week and feeling the pressure that every new thing you have to introduce, you have to do at some regular interval,
Right.
keeps you from doing a lot of one-off kind of let's try it and see how it goes sort of things.
Right. Like, for example, when we did the Rah Rah Riverdale stuff.
Yeah.
Like, there was an intense pressure to just like, okay, well, are you going to do that again? Like, start next month a new target. And I'm like, we're like, whoa, no. I mean, not to say that we never want to do a Rah Rah Har Har style again, but like, again, seasonal, because if every new thing we do all the time at like max level, then you're just going to have the club as it is, and it's never going to grow or change, because we're going to be so busy doing the stuff that we've always done that we never get to do something cool and new. Like, if we had that mentality, we never would have done, you know, because that's the thing, like the cool stuff tends to happen during the slow parts of the year. It'd be nice if we could do the cool stuff during the busy parts, because we've had the time to actually plan for them and execute them and rotate them in and out. So honestly, we don't really know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. It's just something we want to try for the reasons we just outlined.
Yeah, and I think it also has the potential. So we talked about, you know, the potential for club members to become dissatisfied with not constantly having their favorite thing.
Right.
I think on the flip side of that, you can attract new club members with more things, right?
Right.
Like, you know, somebody might not be interested in Quip and live watches and lunches, but maybe they're interested in like a Kerbal style thing that we did or whatever. If we never get the opportunity to explore doing more things, different things, we might not ever attract those people.
Right. And the other thing is, like, you know, I never want this. I'm trying to be honest, but like I could see how this could turn out as like dismissive or like Comcastian, but we have a lot of survey data that indicates 90% of y'all primary reason for support for getting the club is to support what we do at Bald Move.
Yeah.
And I also know the most popular club feature, like Lunch with Jim and Aaron, still has less than 50% penetration. Less than 50% of the club participates in the most popular thing of the club. The next one is the movies, and it's in the high 40. Like, pleasantly, like people really love our spoiler-filled movie reviews. But still, that means 50% of people don't give a shit. They're just listening to the podcast and supporting us, or maybe they're using the VIP forums of it. So like,
well, they're not engaging with lunch, but maybe they're engaging with movies or quips, and that's the thing.
But
keeping
there's
them
still
in the
a
club.
sizable percentage of people that are just doing it because they're doing the civic-minded thing, paying their fair share, so something that like they can do it, they are supporting it, so the thing that they love can continue to happen.
I think it's true, yeah.
And that's kind of given us a little bit of the freedom to like experiment with this, because like the idea that like, well, Quip is the thing that's keeping Bald Move alive, or the video game playthroughs that 300-ish people are enjoying. And I know those 300 people love that shit, and we're not going to completely abandon that. It's just, you know, it I don't know, because like honestly, the big model for this is Giant Bomb, because they have very few other than their like, you know, like they have their reviews and their quick looks and all that stuff, and that's analogous to our week in week out coverage of television.
Right.
But the stuff they do for their club is almost always like unique, one-off, kind of weird shit. And Jim really likes that, and it's something that keeps things fresh and entertaining.
Exactly, yeah.
And hopefully, by emulating that model, we've got if it's a failure, it's going to be a soft failure, and we can just be like, oh well, fuck, we'll just, you know, we'll go back to the tried and true, and maybe we'll pick one that's the least popular and cancel that, and try to continually make room for something else. But it's just something we want to try.
I will say we did not really discuss like how to measure the effectiveness of it at all before we decided that's the way to go. So I don't know if we'll be able to tell in retrospect whether or not it was a good decision.
Well, I think if the club continues to soften and start losing, that's an indicator. I think feedback, people saying, because that's the other thing is like anything we do generates feedback. You know,
Sure.
because that's the other thing. Honestly, like we've taken a pretty hard stance on some political things of late, and I know that pisses people off. And I know for a fact that some people canceled their memberships because they didn't like the environment that was growing on the forum. I know that several other people have written me personally to tell me what cuck soy boy I am, and they're canceling the memberships because they're not going to support Bald Move anymore because of us going the other way. So that is all that stuff kind of gets rolled in, and you kind of divine like, you know, what percentage is what, and it's going to be mostly just looking at the raw data, looking at what people are telling us, probably do another round of surveys next year to see, you know, because we get pretty brutally honest feedback on those things. Like,
yeah, I just mean, you know, similar to like when we talked about the sale, you know, we talked about how are we going to measure it. And we set up extra plans for people to route people into, so we knew exactly how many signed up.
Right.
I'm just saying we didn't do that with this. So any data that we're going to be able to tease out is going to be in retrospect trying to look at, okay, well, with the stats we have in place or had in place
How
at
would
the
you
time,
do that?
how would we do that?
Because it's not too late to change. I mean, we've only been.
I don't know.
This is kind of our first formal announcement that we're doing. We had a quip this month, like, you know, that we could. Because I just don't think there's a way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could look at, I was going to say engagement for the seasons that we do other particular things. Because I think scarcity has some value to it, and maybe people, you know, not having a quip every single month.
Yeah.
Maybe more people would be interested in seasonal quips
Well,
when they
that's
come
the
out.
other thing is like I don't feel like we get a lot of engagement in back catalog of the club because maybe it's not surfaced well enough. But like, you know,
It's not,
we're growing in the club in absolute terms in the club, but like you know, like so if you join up the club now, you have years of lunches to catch up on.
Yeah.
You have years of quips to catch up on. You got years of video games. You just got a smorgasbord of content. And that's a way I kind of like, you know, it's kind of like the Netflix model, right? You know, like every month that Netflix exists, it's more valuable to the subscriber, but incrementally so. You know, there's one more thing I want to talk about, which is, and I think I've answered my question, is the upgraded stats package for Recurly worth it? Because if Recurly is paying for itself, and what information are we missing? Like what are these? What would we get with the upgraded stats package?
So
can we go through all the reports just to see them? Because we got the dashboard, we've seen that. We got the subscribers, we've seen that.
I mean, upgrades are available for all of these. Like I don't know what that gets you on all of these. Let's get show and tell.
That's a bet. I mean, because like I know reports that my old boss in the marketing department would be clamoring for, like a proper bathtub report, a proper centile report that I think are part of the upgraded stats package. But it's like, would we use it, and would it give us any penetrating insight into? This seems like it'd be kind of cool.
So this tells you your growth.
Replacing those blue bars with actually, you know, how much is being churned and your net and all that kind of stuff would be kind of cool.
I mean, I think it's data that we have that we can figure out, but yeah, having it in a report visually helps a lot when determining like patterns and that kind of stuff. So you got that under plans. There's an upgrade for that. Plan versus plan performance comparison. That seems kind of nice.
Right, but all of our plans are essentially the same. We have two plans just at different price points, like sale plans versus. Oh, I know. I guess you're right.
We have a lot of plans. We have like 6 to 8.
Well,
plans.
but they're not materially different. They're all essentially monthly or yearly passes to the club.
Right, but it could tell us. It could tell us, like, you know, if quarterly is just completely not worth it.
Like, I forgot about the
we're
fact
getting
we have
huge
quarterly
churn rates on a particular plan.
Yeah, just get rid of it.
Right.
Or it also would tell us like, is a Game of Thrones fan more loyal than a Westworld fan? Because that's something we've honestly been really interested in knowing. Because like I think that like we haven't talked about this in a while, because it is one of my grand unified theories that We need the big shows like Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad to grow, but we need the little nitty-gritty niche boutique shows to retain. And I feel like that's been borne out in the data, but like it'd be really slick if like people could at the time of checkout select what their favorite show is, so we could tie in and start building like, you know, Walking Dead fans fickle as fuck. Mr. Robot fans, even though it's a smaller show, they're true blue. Like that would give us information about which audience we want to like pursue and cater to. That's the whole point of like loyalty-based marketing. So
Yeah.
trial performance would be pretty sweet.
Yeah, this is a trial performance report.
Because I soft pushed a trial, but like I don't think we do that enough. Like the whole like you can literally get on Bald Move for a trial subscription, not spend a dime, and take us for all we're worth. Like you can
try and blitz through 100+ lunches.
in
a month.
you can get all that stuff. Like I think this would be kind of interesting information to see how many trials we actually get started and how many do we. I mean, every one of our memberships start as a trial.
Yeah.
So like, what's the conversion rate on that?
Yeah, it seems like it'd be good. It's an upgrade for the monthly recurring revenue, detailed monthly recurring revenue growth report. Unlocks access to that upgrade. Blah blah blah. Detailed breakdown of monthly recurring revenue expansion and.
It seems like all these upgrade reports just add churn analysis to every step of the instead of just giving you raw dollar.
Yeah.
You know.
Subscriber retention, that upgrade. Subscriber churn reasons. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Do we have I don't know. Do we have an exit survey that says like why they're leaving?
Oh, I don't know that they
Aaron
give us that.
Aaron can't keep his fucking mouth shut about what's going on in the world. Is that what?
That's probably high on the list.
We're really kicked that one in high gear this month.
But this is more like, card expired, or they didn't renew on purpose, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I guess knowing the voluntary versus involuntary, because like if I would feel a lot better about like a massive churn month if I knew that like, hey, we just had a whole bunch of people with expired credit card, because I get that shit that happens to me all the time.
Yeah, you can see numbers. Oh, color coded too.
Huh? What is that? That gives raw numbers.
Raw numbers of
Of what?
Of churned subscribers.
Oh. Yeah, we got some cohorts that are just like incredibly loyal, like the July cohort of because that's Game of
that's Game
of
Thrones.
But like,
so they're in it for the year.
It does seem like
200
for what it's worth, it feels like the people we sign up in what are the most loyal months? I don't know, because like now that I'm looking at this and seeing it, like it looks like the first month where that's where people sign up for the free, and then they're like, whatever, and they cancel. But if you can get past that hump, like there's a lot of like really amazingly loyal cohorts that we have.
And you can see that that's kind of, I don't know if it's uniformly getting worse, but it definitely, from the time we started when a bunch of our old subscribers were signing up,
right?
The most loyal of the subscribers, they didn't churn nearly as much.
I also like to see, like, that's what a good bathtub report would show, because I know, like, for example, I've been a Club Penny Arcade member on and off over the last decade, probably a good 2/3 of that time. But sometimes, like, you know, like I've been in Penny Arcade for a while, so I cancel, or it's been a long time since and I get more or less engaged. I would love to see like people returning, because right now we just see people leaving. And like, you know, you're like, oh man, after 2 years, only 2/3 of our fans, of our original fans, are left. Is that scary? Is that good? Like, I'd feel better if I could see people coming back in maybe to the fold. But so anyway, that's cool.
Billings.
So billings is where the rubber actually hits the road. That's like how much money we're taking in each month.
Yeah, and it tells you new versus renewing there, which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, this renewing number is really important to us.
Yeah.
God, look,
because that's the base.
Look at that renewing number.
I know, man.
34 grand from the Game of Thrones sale.
That's the base that is a stable thing that we're building, that, you know, erodes much slower. It's much easier to retain people than it is to find new ones, for sure.
Yeah.
Then there's a churn.
But as far as there is no upgrade for that.
Yeah.
Net payments, net refunds. We had a lot of refunds this month as well.
Right, which sucks. I really, really wish if people were going to discontinue, they would just like
just fucking do it when they get the 1 week notice email. Yeah. Because it requires me going in and doing a bunch of shit. So.
Or like if like the worst is when they fucking charge back.
We had
because
that
like
happen. That's cost us money.
It costs us money and also dings our merchant account. So
Yeah.
like if that happened enough, we might get in trouble. We might have to pay a higher. But it's not. It's just more of like because it's still small enough that it feels like a personal slight when someone charges us back. Like really.
This is interesting because the refunds look like they register when the plan is signed up, I guess. Because if I'm doing... How does that work? How do we have so many refunds in July? Oh, no. So we had a problem with our Game of Thrones plan in that month where it was double charging a bunch of people.
Oh.
And so that's what we're seeing here. We had to go in and refund like sometimes 2 or 3. It was a programming error on our website.
Which we got fixed.
Which we fixed, after that month, but you can see what it did to it. This is the refunds we've issued this month from the Game of Thrones plan.
Gotcha.
Not that bad.
Gotcha.
When you're talking about 34,000 in recurring revenue and 280 something.
Right.
That does this have an upgrade? No billing upgrade. Churn analysis, I think is
It's the premium
report. We don't have at all.
Yeah.
The churn reasons, voluntary versus involuntary.
See, and this is non-payment. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting, I guess. But I have no idea what like our churn. I have nothing to compare it to. So
plan performance. So we don't have this report at all, but it'll tell you.
This is what you were talking about, though, like seeing like in pure monetary terms and loyalty-based terms, like which quarterly versus monthly versus yearly versus Don't we have a biannual too?
We do, yeah.
So like what all, which one's the best? Would we be better off giving people less choices? Probably, usually. It's like I've developed an allergy to my favorite deodorant. I've been using this thing for like 15 years plus, and now I've had to like choose. And like, let me tell you, if you're just dropped out of space and you're put in a deodorant aisle and you're asked to pick a deodorant, it's too many choices. Too many fucking choices. So like, I feel like that's human nature. Like you want like a good, better, best. That's like marketing 101. Any more than that, and people start being like, fuck it, I don't know. And incentivize towards price. So like maybe we should, but like that would be an interesting report to have.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the guiding principles when we said, how many tiers are we going to have to our club?
Right.
1.
Right.
You get everything or you get nothing.
Right.
Because a lot of people are like, oh, I just want Quip or something. I'm like, you want Quip? Somebody else wants lunch.
Right.
Somebody else wants this other thing. Like, and I don't think we can just split it off.
And that's why I always hated the the Patreon model, because the people paying the most get the best stuff, but they're the least amount of people. And it was just really sad to like do something cool and 30 people watch it. Like,
right, the coolest stuff is going to get seen by the least amount.
Amount of people. That's more for a model like if you're trying to gate access to you, like you can listen to lunch at the $5 tier, but for $15 you can actually participate. And
it's too much. Recovered revenue, no upgrades.
I mean, we try to be as fair-minded and equality minded as we can, and like we tend to make decisions on like limiting access to us and participation based on stuff like material constraints rather than who's paying to get. That's like the commission podcast deal in the nutshell. Like the hell of that is like it's anathema to us for pay to play, but it's so popular that how any other method of doing it is just fucking arbitrary.
And I think the base growth that we see, right, that those valleys that you're talking about consistently going up is a reflection of that. Like we don't say you have to be one of the 10 people who are going to give us $25 a month to get this cool thing that we do, because we might not be able to do that cool thing for $250 in a month. But if we can just say, okay, we're going to make $21,000 this month,
right,
let's do whatever the fuck we want,
right,
and give it to everybody.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool.
This Dunning report.
I don't know what the fuck this is.
Well, so it says it's like it shows that. So this is essentially, you can so your dunning rate is like how often you try and how often you like pester the customer and all that kind of stuff. And like we have the default settings. If we upgraded, we could actually adjust those, and then it would do real-time analysis based on you make these changes, this is going to affect your revenue this way or that way. So like, you know, more intrusive, get more revenue, less intrusive, more like, you know, how many times we retry a credit card. I mean, that would be kind of cool. And that, like, to the extent that they're like, you just said it yourself, like the settings that we have right now, which are probably conservative, are saving us a boatload of money, justifying the package. So like this thing might justify the increase in reporting. Because what is the?
It might, yeah.
What is? How much more money are we talking about per month?
Let me find out. Okay, then that's whatever. Upgrade available. I hope this doesn't just auto upgrade us. So we're on core. We'd have to go $299 a month, so 200 extra bucks a month. And I think we'd have to go to. There's some other additional cost. Okay, 1.25% of revenue.
Doesn't seem like that's the same.
Yeah.
So I mean, just you're asking me right now, gun to my
$200
head,
a
I
month.
say it's worth the $200 extra just for the dunning
If we
report
use
itself.
it. If we use it.
Right.
Right. That's the question. Like, do we have time and skills to analyze this and figure all of it out?
Right.
Probably. I think the time is the bigger constraint.
Right.
Because we can talk with people and
But
figure
that's
it
the thing.
out.
Like, I mean, if we get a new employee, that employee is going to be wearing a lot of hats, and one of their hats they could be is like, you know, compile these reports into an executive summary that we go over as a team each month.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of like, I think we should, you know, just based on the numbers you showed me as far as how much this is saving us. And a lot of these reports are going to enhance that ability and give us better insights and like what's going on at the club. And in the Dunning report, that might just enable us to get another 10% of those savings.
Right.
It's pretty, I mean, that 1 month, if we had an extra 10% of that 2,700 recovered month, like that pays for that month. It's probably not going to pay overall, but.
No, we'd probably go from. I mean, we were doing it for what, 18 months, so $200 a month. It's like $3,600. So it would put us like at a slight loss as far as recovered revenue versus costs.
Right.
But
if it gives us better business intelligence,
it would
then,
probably break even. Yeah,
Right.
At the worst.
Right.
So yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Well, that is our club update. This went from like our original plan for Bald Move is going to be a 3-legged stool sitting on 1/3 affiliate link, 1/3 club engagement, 1/3 advertising, and you can see that we essentially have just a massive monopod. But
Bezos kicked out that third leg.
he kicked that third leg, and the advertising is just still something we kind of struggle with for a variety of reasons. But I honestly prefer being 100% supported by the club because it is a single point of failure. But like, how could that fail? It could fail by just a catastrophic, like, you know, I mean, one of us dying and just ultimately is a fatal blow to Bald Move, or like some of us does something just super egregious that makes people feel gross for supporting us.
I like to think that won't happen.
We could just like fuck off and stop working as much. And like, you know, and that's something like because I think we did more 4 years ago than we're doing now, but it's tough because we did more shows, but we did much less club type stuff. And you know, like what is like, so we did a show like Justified and it got 3,000 downloads. I bet that didn't really so like we still put in the 10 man hours of work into that for 3,000 downloads. Man, is that time better spent developing business stuff? Is it better spent just us going on playing disc golf and working on our personal relationships? Like you know, where do we allocate our time, and what's valuable, and what's the best for Bald Move? You know, and what's best for like Bald Move is what seems like it's best for everybody. Because if we're happy and engaged, and you guys are happy and engaged, then it's a virtuous circle. Whereas if we're unhappy and disinterested, and you guys get unhappy and disinterested, you know.
And it goes back to, you know, why we're trying to do the seasonal thing with club content.
Right.
We don't want to get bored with it.
Right.
Because then you'll see that.
Right. So, but I definitely think that there is always a tension between we have to continue to find new shows to replace the old ones. We have to continue keeping up with and that's, unfortunately 2018, since 2017 was so kind of like soft. I think in 2018 might be the opposite problem. Like you might come back next spring and Game of Thrones for damn sure is coming back, as HBO just said.
April 14th.
Probably Fargo. Probably Mr. Robot.
Maybe Stranger Things.
Probably Stranger Things. Like, those are already massive shows, and we can probably only do 3 if we're stretching. What the hell are we going to do? One of those shows is going to get bumped, and it'll suck, but
yeah.
What are we to do, Walter?
Yeah.
What are we to do?
I mean, my hope is that, well,
there's not enough eyebrows in the world to smooth that podcopolis. That's
I don't know. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But yeah, I don't know. Club is, I think, overall going really well. Like you, I'm very happy that we have that as our main source of revenue.
Yeah,
because if you look at the recurring monthly revenue we have, it covers all of our bills plus a little bit. Advertising, just gravy. Like you said, we don't even need advertising at this point.
When we come up with, when we get ads, and we'll have a whole other segment on another Empire business podcast on that, but like, ads are kind of like our mad money, like these are like, oh, let's just pay for a crazy project. And we are also running surpluses, so it's time to, our burn rate is quite a bit lower than our income. It's time to increase the burn rate. It's time to get a bigger office. It's time to get an employee. It's time to, because like if why keep it? Like
there's no reason to.
Like, I mean, like, I know you've been whole for a while. I'm almost there. Like, I don't need more money. I want Bald Move to get bigger and better. So like, it's shaping up for 2019 to be very exciting. And some of that stuff hopefully will even start showing fruit in 2018. But like 2019, we said, like, I remember we said something in Empire Business about 2017 probably the last year that like it's just us. And sure enough, 2018 we brought Sandra. She's been a paid social media manager this entire year. And that's a start, collaborating with another person, and I think it's just going to get more interesting from here. So I hope you guys found us interesting and illuminating. Thanks to Jim for the hard work crunching the numbers and doing the prep. There's lots more Empire Business in this season, and thank you so much for making all of this stuff possible, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.